Okay, so I just found out that Harper Lee is publishing a second book, a sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird. Harper Lee. Now, for all my life, I've always thought that that would never, ever, ever happen. Harper Lee doesn't publish more books. She doesn't want to publish more books. I mean, if Harper Lee is publishing more books, then everything I've ever known about the literary world is thrown into confusion and doubt. Maybe Emily Dickinson was really a social butterfly. Maybe Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath had a great marriage. Maybe Ernest Hemingway never could grow a beard and always went around with the nickname Babyface. Maybe I can fly. Nope. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee is one of the classics of American literature. And so, when I just discovered that Harper Lee is publishing her second book 55 years after To Kill a Mockingbird, my reaction was something like this. I don't understand. That's impossible. This news is so unfathomable to me, and I was so flabbergasted that I have to apologize to all the people who saw my initial reaction. I mean, Harper Lee's first book is amazing. It instantly won a Pulitzer. And then she never wrote anything again. She is notorious for being very, very private, not wanting to talk to anyone about her book, not wanting to be interviewed about her book, just keeping away, hidden from the world. So my first thought is, no, it's impossible, it can't be true. Somebody's playing a joke. Or somebody has written some fake version of the To Kill a Mockingbird sequel and is trying to publish it as Harper Lee. This is pretty far-fetched, but not much more far-fetched than Harper Lee actually writing and publishing another book. And as I looked at it, more and more details came to light. This book apparently was written earlier than To Kill a Mockingbird. That means it's around 60 years old. And the manuscript has been sitting somewhere in the property of Harper Lee and her family for all this time. Now, all of a sudden, she decides to publish. Or does she? She's had opportunities to publish for the last 60 years, and she hasn't taken them. She's been keeping her privacy and keeping away from everyone. Anyone would have bought the book all the way back to 1960 because her first book had so much success. So what's changed? There are plenty of conspiracy theories that have come up about this, and to be fair, no conspiracy could be more far-fetched than Harper Lee just suddenly deciding to publish a new book. One of the most interesting points of this whole affair is the fact that Harper Lee's sister, Alice Lee, passed away only 3 months ago. Alice was called by the Washington Post Harper's gatekeeper. She was someone who protected her sister and cared for her and helped to stave off all of the hordes of fans and critics and people interested in publicizing Harper. Without Alice there to protect her, has someone else snuck in and manipulated Harper? After all, Harper Lee is, at this point, deaf and mostly blind, and in a nursing home. Is it possible that someone has had her sign away this manuscript without her really understanding what she was doing? That seems a lot more feasible to me than her just suddenly deciding to publish it. Or perhaps as they've been cleaning out Alice's things, they've found the manuscript, and Harper suddenly decided, hey, here's my old manuscript, I've wanted to publish this for a long time. It's very difficult to determine because no one can really talk to Harper except for her lawyer. So is this a case of an author changing her mind and finally deciding to publish she's had for a really long time? Or is it somebody manipulating a sweet little old lady? It's really impossible to say. What are the ethics of this issue, after all? There's plenty of precedent for people going against an author's wishes. On his deathbed, Franz Kafka famously asked his friend to burn all of his manuscripts. If they had been burned, we would have lost such a treasure trove of literature. And maybe there's a little bit of tragedy to the fact that Ted Hughes burned some of Sylvia Plath's journals. Where do we draw the line between an author's private personal wishes and the good of humanity in capturing the greatness of that piece of literature? A lot of us feel more comfortable with such an issue after the author is dead. The author's dead, here's some papers found in his or her desk. Should we publish them? Well, they won't know, and it won't affect them. When your work is something of a heritage for humanity, is it really fair to keep that hidden? To destroy that? After all, Harper could have destroyed this manuscript years ago if she didn't want it published, so why does she sit on it and keep it until now? Perhaps she did want it published after her death, and I guess there is still that small chance that she actually wants it published now. There's something of a utilitarian argument to all of this. Is it for the good of one or the good of many? And to be fair, I don't know the answer. I feel confused and conflicted myself, and I feel bad for Harper. She just lost her sister. Is this something she really wants? Am I going to read it? Most definitely. I hope it's a very good book, and I hope that it makes a big impression on American literature. And I hope, whatever was Harper's intent, that she remains happy and comfortable where she is. I mean, how would you feel if your personal stuff was dragged out before a public? Even if we don't have anything to hide, we like to have some control over the way the public views us. Let's go chat with a few other people and see what they think about Harper Lee.
So, I mean, as the book lover in me, I'm super excited. Like, I remember going into lunch yesterday and finding out that Harper Lee's releasing a new book, and that's pretty low on my list of expectations ever for the day, much less at the age she is. The more I read about it, the more I'm a little worried about the circumstances behind it. With the recent death of her sister and the fact that like her sister kind of kept everybody away from her, and then 3 months later magically this book comes out, it's bothering. But selfishly I'm really excited to read it. Like, that's the part of me, like part of me is like, that is wrong, and I will be there day one and I'm still going to read it. Like, I don't know. To Kill a Mockingbird is one of those books I always tell my students, like, it's okay to hate books you have to read in school. Like, I understand you're going to hate it. And I said, To Kill a Mockingbird is the #1 book when you reread it later, you'll be like, oh, this is really good. And I think it's a flawless book. Like, I've read it so many times and it never fails to. And I'm astonished. Like, the idea of Scout as an adult, I really am excited to read. And I don't know. I'm really intrigued. I will say, my favorite summation, though, and I will leave it at this. I saw a comment somebody else made on Twitter, and their whole comment on Twitter just said, 60 years later, Harper Lee looked out her door and said, whoa, we're still all racist? All right, put out book 2.
The author of To Kill a Mockingbird is publishing another book. It was announced yesterday, after 55 years later.
Wow.
Yes. And it is a sequel, yes. It is a sequel. It was written before, but it's set after. So we are actually getting your first reaction right now.
That is very exciting.
On camera. It is exciting.
Very exciting. I will have to
This is a
To
thrill.
Kill a Mockingbird to read this.
My son is reading To Kill a Mockingbird in English right now, and so this morning I got to tell him that the sequel is coming out,
Which
so
is
we're very
cool.
excited.
Well, no, it was written before.
I don't know how
We-
she did that.
We're going to read it again. We're going to read the
Yes.
first one again to read the second one.
There we go.
It's going to be like our guidance book club.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I loved it. It was my favorite book.
We'll have meetings in our spare time. So it is super duper exciting.
And if you come to see your counselor and they can't see you, they might be reading.
That's right.
There you go.
Thanks for watching. Click here to subscribe. Here to watch another video. Here to watch the previous video. Or click on the narwhal and something good is bound to happen.